for joining me in week 40 of this year of accelerated growth and well-being. Highly recommend doing this in order since being of service, the topic of week 40, is something that tends to bring more well-being, at least it has in my case, after filling the well, so to speak. The principle being that the first action in our ability and willingness to respond, in our responsibility as individuals, is to keep ourselves safe, healthy, abundant, etc. And that when it reaches a certain point, when our cup overflows, that the greatest joy comes in extending our sphere of influence, extending our sense of beauty, our sense of well-being, whatever that is. I mean, hopefully, in our sense of enlightened self-interest, what we're doing inside our body and our mind and our heart is something we think is beautiful, that we think is valuable, such that by the time we come to extend it, there's a book that comes to mind, Nail It, then Scale It. It's a great book if you're an entrepreneur. And the idea, in this case, is perfect the prototype on the inside to the best of your ability, and then turn your ability to share the model you've created on the outside. None of this is perfect. This is not a perfect dimension. But there definitely does come a time, I've experienced it in the last few years, when giving value, giving healing, giving joy in some form or another brings enormous joy. And it's with that in mind that I want to talk about being of service. And so I would recommend that you pursue all of this scientifically. So consistent with the dogma of our day, do experiments. And I think the favorite kind of experiment is you expend 1 unit of energy, $1, 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 block of wood, whatever it is, 1 unit of energy. And you invest it as well, throughout all of these last 40 weeks experiments. Expend units of energy doing and acting and thinking along the lines that I'm suggesting, and then measure the well-being created. Measure the potential well-being created. Look at it as a business. Measure the upside and the downside. And so this is one of those experiments. And so to be of service, try giving some money. Here's my favorite way to spend money: to figure out how much possible income or how much possible impact a given dollar could have. So, for example, a couple of dollars can cure cataracts in some people in a way that basically allows them to see, which they otherwise can't. And if you can imagine the amount of impact over a lifetime of being able to see versus not being able to see, that is a lot of impact for a few dollars. Is there anything else that can have more impact with, while spending less energy? No doubt about it. But I don't know what it is. So try it and see. Do experiments to see what kind of giving, what kind of service, what kind of love brings you the most well-being, because that's kind of the best in a sustainable ecology. You have spending a sustainable, a renewable resource to create a desirable result that renews you in the giving of it, and then spreads to other people in a positive viral cycle. This is a sustainable ecology. A sustainable energy is used. Money is pretty much infinite, time, etc., to create a positive result that renews you in some way in the giving, and that then is replicated and empowers another person to do the same thing, a virtuous cycle going forward. So being of service, how to do it with time, how to do it with money, how to do it under the response of crisis, how to do it in the sense of joy, how to do it in the sense of love, how to do it in the sense of just discipline. This person needs something, I'm going to do it. All the different ways of being of service. One of the reasons I love the paradigm scientific well-being is that, much like scientific capitalism, capitalism, as we've come to understand it in most American corporations, is trying to extract as much money as possible from a given dollar, which is where we get the mantra shareholder value. In other words, that a shareholder gives you $1 and that you're a good business if you bring that shareholder $1.50 back. You're a great business if you bring that shareholder $3 back, 300% return on investment. You are a stunning, amazing, world-class business if you bring that person $1,000 for every dollar they invest. I mean, this is, what every investor is looking for, etc. But in the paradigm of scientific well-being, it's a similar thing. It's, you spend $1 giving someone, giving $1 to someone sitting on the street, how much well-being is created and for how long, and does it lift up? You donate, you loan money to a businesswoman on Kiva.org. What happens to that family as a result of being able to buy the typewriter or repair the motorbike taxi, or this, that, and the other? What is the impact? How dimensional is the impact? If you give one gift, for example, with an idea, your mind lights up. There are certain gifts that become multidimensional, and the multidimensionality is almost implicit, where heart, mind, money, community, ecology, body, aesthetics, sustainability, service, divinity, every single dimension that you measure the gift in, they all rise. And so you have this kind of measurement of volume where if we have $1, 1 unit of energy, equals 1 unit of well-being, on how many dimensions? Because every dimension that it equals a unit of well-being. In other words, the dimensions are much like the bandwidth in a cyber network. So we used to have like 28 kilobyte a second, dial-up modems, then 256 kilobytes, and then 1 megabyte, and now averages, in a developed country, maybe 20, 30 megabytes per second, and then we're going up to 1 terabyte. The point is, time is very different when we add in dimensions. 1 minute, 1 unit of energy creating 1 minute of bandwidth. If it's just, one stream of data per minute, now you've just got, it's rich in one dimension. The more dimensionality is kind of like the width of the bandwidth. The width of the band in an internet connection. Because if you have the choice to have 100 minutes of internet connection at 1 kilobyte a second, or 1 second at 1 terabyte a second, if you can stack up all your interactions, you will get more done in the 1 second terabyte connection than you will in the 1 kilobyte per second for an hour. And so I mention this dimensional piece because in the cultural framework where money and external things, we see things, this bias come in when donors invariably want to donate a building, at a school, the John Mellon Hall, the people want to be symbolized in a thing, because in a male chauvinistic culture where the yang energy, everything yang, everything external is valued more than the internal, it would make sense for a building to be valued more than the quality of what is taught inside. This would be the equivalent of wanting to have your name on the internet cable. Like, would you rather be, if you were sponsoring an event, do you want your name on the internet cable supplied by XYZ person, or would you want your name on the data delivered by XYZ? And then what about the quality metric? This is even more internal and subjective. How rich was the experience of people watching the data? And business has gone from these very hard metrics, very, very yang, more and more into, from selling hardware to selling user interface. There's a switch in the computing industry towards the feminine, because that's ultimately what you and I are buying. I could give a shit if my computer is a 1 terabyte this and a this, that, and the other. What I want is to be able to turn the thing on, have the keyboard be quiet, be able to see the keyboard, not hurt my palm on a sharp surface. I want it to turn on instantly. I want it to be consistent. I want it to last a long time, and I never want to get annoying messages that say, would you like to update your system? Of course I don't want to update my system. I want to do what I came on the program to do. And then, do you want to do this? I don't want to do any of it. I don't want to know any of it. I don't want to do any of it. I just want to write my emails, watch my movies, etc. And this is the user experience. As John Cleese did in one of his management courses, where the hospital was trying to sell the patient in one of the sketches of here's our super machine that goes beep, and here's this, and how about we can drill 2 holes in your head in only 1 second? It's like, no, the person isn't interested in all that. They just want to get healthy. Is this the best way to get healthy? So the dimensionality element is important, because in the internal-external equation, it is ultimately experiential, meaning if someone feels absolutely terrific driving a bicycle, the experience is terrific, and someone feels absolutely enraged driving their BMW, it's the experience of terrific that ultimately matters more to you and I than what the external is. I mean, if you and I could feel terrific all of the time, or anytime we wanted to, would we rush around doing all these things we don't want to do that we're told if we do them, blah, 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 blah. We should do them because then we will, but often we don't. I mean, the whole Western civilization has all been about this whole, you meet one person after another working 2-3 hour jobs to do this, 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 so that they can buy this and do this and do that, so they can do this, and then they'll be able to write this on their resume, then they'll do this, then they'll be able to work here for 2 years, then change jobs, move here for 2 years, and then they'll be happy. I mean, that's a lot of work to do in an unhappy state so that you can be happy. I mean, 100,000 years ago, we were up in the trees. We were monkeys. A monkey wanted a banana, climbs over to the banana tree, rips it, eats it. Doesn't need a banana anymore. Monkey wants to have sex, walks over 5 or 10 feet, starts having sex, enjoys the experience. Done. Wants to sleep, shuts her eyes, sits there, wants to play around some games, throws some sticks around. Done. No rent. No viruses, no keeping up with the Jones, just existing, And what's interesting in this evolutionary cultural dynamic is that there are a lot of people today who are less happy than that monkey, who sleep less, have less sex, and eat more poorly so that they can get ahead. Meaning they've gone way backwards into devolution voluntarily, buying into the cultural lie that this is the way to get ahead. It's the story of the fisherman who goes out in his little boat, catches a few fish, comes back, takes a nap, gives some to his family, and sits there enjoying the water. The idiotic Westerner comes along, says, "How many fish you got?" "Well, it cost 3 or 4. And here's the joke. "Well, just think," he says, "just think. If you had 3 or 4 boats and worked twice as many hours, you could catch 8 times as many fish." "Okay, why would I want to do that?" "Well, if you caught 8 times as many fish, you could sell the surplus in the market." "Why would I want to do that?" "Well, if you sold 8 times, the number of fish per day, blah, 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 every year you'd make X amount of money." "Well, why would I want to do that?" "Well, if you made this amount of money, you could then build a pier, and you could have proprietary rights in the pier, and everyone who had to use that pier would have to pay you money." "Why would I want to do that?" "Well, if they're all paying you money, you could then hire an investment consultant on how to invest that money. You could have regular meetings with them, how to make money into more money. You could do this, that. Why would I want to do that?" "Well, if you make more and more money," see, here's the wonderful thing, "then you can send your kids to have an education, and you can have an education too." "Well, why would I want to do that?" "Well, if you have an education, you see, then you can make even more money. You can make even more money. You can know things. You can buy a car and drive around to important meetings." "Why would I want to do that?" "Well, if you drive around to important meetings and do this and do that, and then one day you will be able to retire." He says, "Well, why would I want to do that?" He said, "Well, once you retire, you can do whatever you want to do." It's like, well, why would I, what do you want to do? "Well, I like going out, catching a few fish, coming back, giving some fish to my family, playing a little bit with my kids, taking a nap, and looking at the ocean." They said, "Well, you can do that. You can do that once you retire." It's like, I'm doing it right now. go out, catch a few fish, enjoy the water, come back, have a great time with my family. No rush, no money, da. The Westerner walks off in disgust. They don't get it. They don't get it. And I think it's a good question. Is your life today better or worse than that monkey? Because if your sex life is worse, your sleep life is worse, your diet is worse, and you've got 10,000 more worries than that monkey to look good in this and get this like this, and I've got to go to this jeweler so that I can have the clasp repaired because this is my favorite jewelry, and I've got to have the jewelry ready for the party. Because I just when I visualize the party, that's what I was wearing as I was wearing that's my lucky jewelry, and the jeweler's closed. What am I going to do? The clasp isn't fixed. It's a joke. It's a joke. The monkeys had it better. So to be of service, we're looking at creating the most amount of well-being for the least amount of effort. Not defined by the culture, but defined by felt experience. By felt experience. And that applies to this. I talked about the 80-20 principle in the beginning of this. If you're not enjoying this whole project that I'm playing around with as much as climbing a tree and eating a banana, go climb a tree. Focus on what brings you well-being, per unit of energy invested. This is free, it's a gift, it's fun, hello. And so I've done a number of assessments along this line, and I've got two things that I did a 30-day project recently where every day I spent 30 minutes and up to $20, maybe up to $30. So 30 minutes and up to $30 with one goal: how to have the most well-being, how to create the most well-being for the most people in any possible way I can imagine. So one day I gave a loan on Kiva. Another day I cleaned the beach, gathered it all up in the garbage can, and it's one of my beaches I like. And another day I gave some money to my masseuse. Another day I bought some things for a kid. Another day I gave a massage. Another day I gave some business consulting advice to a new business owner. Another day I bought my girlfriend canvases for painting. Just every day a different thing. But my favorite thing that I could think of in terms of impact was how to help Western women have less children. Because I did research that said that a Westerner like you and I is going to be responsible for an enormous environmental impact: 1,500 tons of CO2, more than 90,000 gallons of gas consumed, more than 100 tons of garbage sitting in a landfill somewhere, more than X units of electricity. It is an enormous impact that you and I exist. And there is a population bubble, and there's a bit of a curve here where in the sustainability equation, you have the learning curve of what is sustainable, and that's on one learning curve. And then you have the, and these are actually reversed, you have the learning curve of what's sustainable, and then you have population growth. Well, when population expands faster, then you learn how to be sustainable. In a business, you're bankrupt, basically. If you grow sales faster than you learn how to make a profit, that's sustainability. More's coming in than's going out. That's sustainability. If you don't have a sustainable business, it's bankrupt. And so if you grow the business faster than you learn how to make the business sustainable or profitable, you have a dead business. If you grow the skill of how to make the business profitable and thus sustainable faster than you grow the business, you have a thriving business. You want these trends to be reversed. We are still learning as a global democracy, as a global autocracy, how to be sustainable on this planet. We're learning that. We don't have it down. There's not anyone who says we're generating more useful resources than we're consuming. And so it makes sense to reduce population to below the curve that we're going to run out of resources before we figure out the algorithm of sustainability. So, and when you think of it, like people are all obsessed about buying a Prius or this, that, the other. The idea of eliminating the idea that by not having a child, you instantly remove 100 tons out of all landfills. You instantly remove 1,500 tons of CO2. You instantly remove 90,000 of oil. All the fight, it's all about oil, blah, 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 blah. Well, you're freeing up 90,000 gallons of oil. And then the big thing is, here's the real thing. When you don't have a child, it saves a parent 30,000 hours over the lifetime of the relationship until they're an adult. It also costs the taxpayer around $100,000. So, and then it costs the typical Western affluent parent $340,000 to raise one child. So this is a ton of time, money, and resources. So as with anything, to make it sustainable, to be of service, you can't overstep your own boundaries. You can't say, I'm going to have 5 children, treat them all perfectly, spend, $1 million raising them, and then I'm going to give more money to charity, etc. Everyone's in a different situation, of course. But the point is, if you choose not to have a child, and this will be my service today to consider that, if you choose not to have a child, it is pretty much a given that you've just eliminated 100 tons of garbage, 90,000 gallons of gas, or choose not to have another one. Reduce one child, basically. The resource consumption rate, which is 9 times higher in a developed country than in a developing country. So for an American to remove one child is like someone in Bangladesh removing 10 children, because we produce way more garbage, way more gas, way more CO2, the whole thing. So that's an example to teach someone the benefits of not having a child. But that's just step 1. So step 1, save 340,000 plus 30K hours. Save $340,000, save 30,000 hours. You take all those environmental resources and give them back to the ecology. But now you've got 340,000 and an extra 30,000 hours that you wouldn't normally have if you'd had that children and if you had that child. And the question is what to do with it. And what I want to suggest is that you consider, do experiments to see what of all the different ways you can give energizes you. Like, this is fun for me. So you look at what energizes you. You look at what energizes your audience. You look at what's renewable. It's very little energy to watch a YouTube video, so you can make a video. But I want to encourage you to consider a particular line of thought that I think is exciting. When I was 14 years old and leaving my formal Waldorf school in order to accelerate my learning in my own self-designed homeschool program, I asked myself this question. It's a question that I'd invite you to ask yourself right now. The question is this: what skills, what 4 skills would, if I become a world-class exhibitor of that skill, make me the most valuable person I can be on and to the planet for the next 100 years? Got that? The skills that will make you the most valuable to the most people over the next 100 years are very valuable skills, obviously. This could include working with artificial intelligence. This could include virtual reality. This could include environmental science. This could include ecological design. You look at the crises that are coming, and for example, if you could invent a protocol or a technology where a 3D printer, did you know there's an island of plastic out in the middle of the ocean that is bigger than the whole of New York State? It's an enormous island of plastic. Well, with 3D printers making plastic out of plastic and making all kinds of things, what if you invented a giant 3D printer that sailed off in a garbage trawl, a garbage barge, sailed off to this island, landed, and the first thing this printer did was printed a facility that turned plastic that was wet and gooey and that into dry, clean plastic to be used by the 3D printer. Step number 1. That's step number 2. Built a housing for the 3D printer that kept the 3D printer free from all weather, this, that, and the other. Next, started manufacturing a floating island. This nice current, this confluence of currents, keeps the island there. Manufacture a floating island buoy system out of the plastic that created the first tourist destination on the high seas, and turn it into a recycling facility that is 10 times more efficient of any other recycling facility, that is continuous ocean currents, such that all the world's plastic dumped in the ocean, by all kinds of, sleazy cruise ships and this and that and the other, makes its way there for free, no transportation costs, and a continuous supply of plastic is there. The 3D printers are on hand to expand the real estate of this island indefinitely, then sell square footage of the island as the first high seas island, and start a self-generating process where for the next 50 to 100 years, as plastic drifts to this island and it expands, there are millions and millions of dollars being generated to make more garbage recycling 3D printers that are then shipped around the world with no other goal than to recycle plastic more efficiently and provide ocean habitat exploration with deep, that anything that we can possibly develop for diving and this and that can happen from this base, and that it becomes the first international bit of real estate to start a new community on, with one goal: to learn about sustainability through recycling. And the only qualification to come to this island is that you're committed to being of service, and you win the grant to go there based on how much impact you have on other people in the areas you matter. So then when you go there, you get to hang out with other people for 6 months, a year, 3 months, whatever, that are committed to transforming the world. Like that's an exciting possibility. And I think that you, with the 30 hours or the 30,000 hours saved by not having a child, could spend 10,000 hours learning how to do that in a really exciting way. And that the world would be a significantly better place to such an extent that it will offset the 1,500 tons you and I are going to generate in CO2, the 102 tons we're going to generate in garbage, the 93,000 gallons we're going to generate in gasoline, and then all the waste and blah, blah, blah. So I think that's an exciting idea. Now, I'm playing around right now. I'm building an app. I've just got the nonprofit status, etc. So, and my goal is to figure out where's the best way to spend money? Where's the best way to spend time to have the most impact? My nonprofit is called Happiness Data. And if you want to help with happiness data in some way, I have a couple of visions, and you can act on them unilaterally on your own, etc. But the vision is basically this. If you have an idea that something that would really help the world to resolve this, you can post the idea. And anyone can respond. As I learn about ideas, such as the one here, I post them there. And then teams can form and contribute bits and pieces over time. A few dollars for this, $10 for that, 10 hours for this, 1 hour for that. Bits of information here, an article to read here, etc., etc. So that slowly these projects come together and we partner with one another to create more well-being. So that's my vision. And there are few things that are more exciting to me than what I just talked about. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you on the next week. And thank you particularly for those of you that are joining me for the entire year of exceptional growth and well-being.